Today, we're going to talk about kind of a controversial topic, people pleasing. And so, people pleasing, the type of people pleasing where we are stuck saying yes to things that deep down we really don't want to do. But it is easier for me to say yes to baking the extra cookies, babysitting the extra kid, running over to check on mom and dad, picking up the extra shift, whatever that might be. It's easier for me to say yes than to deal with the conflict or the confrontation or the discomfort of the person who asked in the first. So today we're going to dig into people. I'm Jen.
And I'm Erin. Welcome to Beyond the Scale.
This Erin. What do you think about that term people pleasing? In some ways it kind of feels a little negative. Like I don't want to admit or even think of myself as a people pleaser because I think the flip side of that might mean that I'm selfish or that I don't care about your feelings. What do you think when you hear the word people pleasing? Is it a positive thing, a negative? Is it okay to be a people pleaser? What are your thoughts?
I don't think it's necessarily a good thing because I think that if people find out that you are a people pleaser, there is that
Oh,
reputation that you can get of like, oh, well, she'll say yes. She says is yes to everything. And she's totally fine. Don't worry about it. She doesn't mind doing those extra things. I would say I am
and
a
now you're taken advantage of.
Exactly. I am a reformed people pleaser. So,
Nice. Okay.
still a
Now
work
I
in
need to know
progress.
what that is.
Still a work in progress. However, I believe with age, it has become much easier for me to use that teeny tiny little word that says no. And realizing that no is a full stop. It doesn't need any more explanation. Just, oh, no.
Hmm.
Mm-mm. A little nod and
Hmm.
moving on. Before I would feel like I would have to come up with some huge explanation as to why. And now it's just, oh, no, sorry. And that's okay. And realizing that though I might make someone uncomfortable or they may not be happy that I've said no, that in most
Hmm.
cases, they're just going to move on to the next person. And that's okay. Every once in a while, I've had somebody but tried to guilt me with that. And I was like, oh, well, I'm really sorry. I hope it's going to work out for you.
Oh, I
and
like that.
and to be able to put it back in that person's lap of like, no, you're not going to put it in mine. I'm going to give it back to you. You don't need to give it to me, and I don't need to carry it around. As good as I've gotten, I still have moments where I have to slow my thought process down when somebody brings something
Mm.
up, and I'm like, I have a tendency to be more of like, oh, that sounds great. That JOMO FOMO.
Mhm.
Well, sometimes I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I'm like, oh, darn it, I don't actually want to do that. Why did I say yes? That's way past my bedtime. I don't want to go out. I'm in my pajamas. I'm in my
Yeah,
sweatpants.
right,
I
right.
I don't want to do that. Why did I
We
say
haven't really
yes?
thought about how it's going to affect us to say yes, right?
Because
We just
because I
want to
said
please the other person.
I said yes too quickly instead of slowing down and saying,
Yes.
let me think. I'll get back to you. So if I feel like I don't want to say no, but I want to slow myself
Hmm.
down so that I at least take the time to consider my decision before I learn I've regretted it where I'm like, oh God, what have I gotten myself into now? How about you, Jen? Are you a people
Absolutely.
pleaser? Are you reformed? Are you a work in progress? Or are you a
Well,
I don't care. I'm fine. No.
I don't know, honestly. I I think there are definitely times that I feel like I overextend myself, and I guess I hadn't thought about it as being a people pleasing coping mechanism, right? That I overextend because like you, it sounds good. I also am a caring person, right? Like I want to ease your burden. I want you to feel better. But I also kind of think that as I get older, it's becoming a little easier for me to like see and kind of protect some of the things that are important to me, even if it might mean making you a little uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So I do, let me just share, like, I guess a little bit of the coaching side of it is that people pleasing from a therapy standpoint is saying that it is really a coping mechanism and a strategy that we now are moving forward in our adult life that came from how a certain circumstance in our childhood, right? And so because we saw something, we heard we disappointed somebody else, maybe a parent said, oh, I was never able to follow my dream of doing this, I hope one of my kids do, that somehow we kind of took that as, well, I want to make mom happy, so I'll do that thing, right?
Yeah.
And so therapy, this is not a bash on therapy. I'm sure that it would be great for me to unpack with a therapist some of the life skills and the coping strategies that I currently do in my adult life. But from a coaching standpoint, we're not looking at the past and why it happened. We're kind of looking forward into like, okay, I don't really know why this is how I respond to people, why I never stand up when somebody says, hey, let's go here for dinner, and I'm like, okay, I hate that food, but okay. Like I don't get that part of it. But coaching is saying, hey, if I'm not happy with how I'm responding, then let's see what I can do about it now. And so the good news is that people pleasing is a learned behavior, which means I can unlearn it. So I loved your terminology of saying you're reformed,
Yes.
because we're all probably people pleasing in some aspect or another, right? Whether it's a friend group or I don't, one thing that I was just thinking of that just literally popped in my head, is not recently, but I will say in the not too far past, not that long ago, I have even went to get like a manicure and chose a color or a shape of my nails or whatever for the manicurist. And then there's something along the way that they change or that I decide I really don't like. But when I try to say it and they disagree, no, no, it's good. Oh no, I think it's pretty, but I hate it. I have just gone along with it. I have let them paint my nails a color that I did not like, and then I've tipped well, um, because I didn't want her to be like, "Oh my gosh, that girl is so like high maintenance." And then I will drive myself over to Walgreens, and I will be in there buying another color and like trying to like put a top coat on. I don't know that I realized until this moment that that was me pleasing the manicurist because I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable. To learn that our feelings matter as well.
Yep.
And it's okay to let that other person maybe be in an uncomfortable spot, right?
Mhm.
So let's say in our age group, and for our audience, 50s and above, what are some other examples that you can catch yourself or that you've seen in others around us, that maybe we give into when we didn't really want to?
I liked your example about the restaurant, but I think a lot of people fall into it with food when it comes to
Mm,
their loved ones, that they end
yeah.
up eating things that they don't necessarily want to eat because somebody has
Yes.
brought it into the house. And then they find
Oh, yeah.
themselves in that situation of like, well, it's here, so I might as well. Or, they don't. I've seen some situations where they almost guilt them into, well, I bought this
Mm,
for you, so you now have to eat it. And it's like, well, I didn't ask you for it, so why do I have to eat it? If you bought it, you eat it. But that's a hard thing to
yes.
say, because if you
Right.
feel like that person's coming from a place of love and caring, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, I understand. But then there's other people who they aren't really, their intentions aren't the best for a particular person. So we see
Mm.
that from time to time. How about you, Jen?
Yeah, well, and every situation is there's not going to be a one size fits all, right? There are going to be times where I do need to say yes, right? Like not again, not too long ago, an example, I had planned to take a walk, and I was, had this big plan to come home from work, eat some dinner, and then I was going to head out. It was still light. I had energy. It was my goal for the week, whatever. And as soon as I got up to put my shoes on, my husband said to me, oh, I thought we were going to watch the next episode of, blah, blah, blah show that we were watching. And I could almost see like a little bit of I don't want to say sadness, but like a shift in his facial features, maybe disappointment that I
Yeah.
wasn't excited to watch the show in that moment. And so I sat down and took off my shoes. And I thought, okay, he needs some quality time right now. And that's okay. But deep down, I also realized I put his needs and his feelings above my own.
Mhm.
Can I do that every time?
I wouldn't
Probably
recommend it.
not. And I, no, because if we don't resolve these feelings, they've got to come somewhere, right? And so now probably they're going to show up physiologically or biologically within us, right? Stress, anxiety, depression, lack of sleep, your example, gaining weight, right? Because now I'm going to eat all the things because again, I don't want to feel the feelings. But also, they might get projected onto somebody else. So now, because I've said
Yes.
yes to all these things in my professional life, now I'm taking it out on my personal life or vice versa.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we
Well,
don't want that to happen.
no, we don't want that to happen because unfortunately, when we have those feelings, they kind of get shoved down, and then there's something that causes it
Yeah.
all to come up. And it
Right.
can be rather messy, and it can sometimes be directed at somebody who has absolutely nothing to do with the
Right.
situation whatsoever. That the
Yeah.
person who has upset you is nowhere around for the aftermath of your frustration of realizing, hey, I did this because I love you, but I really needed to maybe say, why don't you come for a walk with me instead? How about I'd love it
Right.
if you'd come with me for a few minutes and then we'll watch the show. Or we could watch the show
Right.
and then go for a walk. Which one would work better for you? And seeing what kind of buy-in you could get from him and see, he might be like, well, I don't want to do that at all. And say, okay, well, I have this on my plan. I need a few minutes and then I'll be right back. And I'm sure he probably Jimbo would have been fine. He would have been fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He'll probably listen to this and be like, when was this? And when did I stop you from going for a walk? So love you, baby. No judgment.
Exactly.
But really, I think that's part of the strategy of how do we unlearn this? How do I become a reform person? Is just to respond and not react, right? To sit a little bit and just go ahead and have that conversation of, hey, could I do a 15-minute walk and then we watch the show? Or how long is that episode? Like, what
Mhm.
is it that you're kind of expecting out of me? Can I actually add that to my plate right now? Is it going to affect any other part of my journey, right? Like when's dinner, childcare, parents, whatever. Like, what's it really going to look like? But now we're having a conversation and it's not, I have to please you and my feelings don't count. And now we're almost like festering this relationship and we're kind of breaking it. And maybe in some ways, you do start to take advantage of me because you tend to get your way whenever you're with me. And not that I don't love you and care about your feelings, but that I have to understand, as we have shared in many of our other podcasts, our brain's function is to protect us from pain and to look for pleasure, right? Which
Mhm.
is why we often turn to food, right? But also, if I need to deflect from pain, then what if you yell at me? What if you're not my friend anymore? What if you never buy me a treat and I really like those treats? I just can't have them right now. What if you never want to go for a walk with me? What if you never want to watch the show with me? Right? Like we're jumping ahead. So I'm
The what if
hoping,
process.
yeah, the what if.
Yeah.
And then doesn't like that habit loop of the brain just like we start to solidify it.
Mhm.
So I always say yes to everyone else. I always put myself second or last, third, fourth, fifth. And now I'm learning that is that's how I respond. This is what I do. And that's what you learn about me as well. And so,
Yes.
unfortunately, it might take some age to help us to get better with that.
I would say that's the thing. The more you say yes to someone, the more they have an expectation that you're just going to keep saying yes. And
Hmm.
so when you kind of start to say, hold on a second, nope, not this time, you can expect there's going to be a little bit of discomfort and uncomfortable feeling on that person and also on you because it's something new that you're doing, but they're also reacting like, wow, she always says yes. What do you mean she said no? Oh my gosh, wait, why is she saying no to me this time? What's going on? Um,
Down to it's just easier for me to say yes or to do it or to take that shift or whatever that might be than to worry about can we have this dialogue.
yeah.
And so but these are going to be some steps that I would suggest if you were trying to overcome people pleasing. And maybe we don't want to wait until our 50s and 60s to learn how to do this. And maybe that goes back to my original comment of we're learning these through some other type of experience, whether it was childhood or teenage years or whatever that might be. But I do want to share I have a future daughter in law. And so young, she's 20 years old. She already knows how to put some boundaries on some things. But I have to admit, I was caught off guard because I wasn't prepared for someone to not want to please me, I guess, which sounds horrible to say. But I'll give you a little context. She was here visiting. She lives in another state. And my son and her were going to go see a movie, but it was a part two of a movie. I don't even remember what the movie is at this point. And my husband and I said, well, you can't go see part two when you haven't seen part one. Let's watch part one. Right. And so we sat down on the couch to start watching part one. And she says, I think this movie seems a little stupid. And we were like, huh? And they were, oh, just give it time, give it time. Like, you got to build the context. You need to understand the characters. And she's like, it seems a little slow. I'm like, no, it just seems slow because we're like building up to it. Two or three more times of her kind of fidgeting on the couch, getting up to go get a drink, going to the bathroom. I got to be honest, there was a little bit of me thinking, like, hello, like, we're your future in laws. We asked you to watch this movie with us. Why are you not watching the movie? But now looking back on the situation, and honestly, it didn't take me this many months to see this. I think I bragged on it to you the next day. She eventually came back to the couch and said, I really don't want to watch this movie. And I think I'm going to be okay seeing part two without seeing part one because I don't really probably like the movie, but I I really don't want to sit here and be so frustrated for the next 2 hours. So I'm going to go do whatever. And she walked away. And my mouth dropped. What? Is this rude? Is this, you know, selfishness? Like, I don't know. Like, my brain was kind of jumping to a lot of judgy places. I'm so sorry, Emmy. However, afterwards, after I let it kind of sit for a minute, and then I think it was the next day that you and I worked together, I was like, I got to give her some props. Like, how awesome that at 20, she knows what she wants, she knows how to articulate it, and that she's not afraid to tell people what that is, even if it's somebody she's trying to make a good impression on. Right. So in the moment, there might have been a little bit of like, ooh, but that was my discomfort. Right. But
Mhm.
she was okay with me being uncomfortable because in the moment she was thinking for the next 2 hours, I have to do this so that they like me as their son's girlfriend. No, we like her more knowing that she told us the truth.
The maturity of that young woman is quite impressive. The fact that she was able to articulate it and say, I just don't want to. How many of us do not articulate, sit through, do things because we're being polite? I'm impressed with your soon to be daughter in law. I would have loved to have been and brave enough to say, I don't want to do that and not worry that it was going to bother
Hmm.
somebody, because I think that is one of the hardest parts, is that we think we take the path of least resistance because we don't want it to be hard for them and hard for us. We just don't want
Yes.
that. But she was okay with that. Good job. Well
And
done.
yeah, I absolutely. And so, Emmy, if you're listening, like, proud of you,
Yeah.
right? Wishing there's a side of me that's like, ooh, am I teaching my girls that? Like, Or are they following in my footsteps of, getting the wrong color nail polish put it on, because I don't want to upset the stranger painting my nails. There's that little, angst in me about, again, that self judgment, bad mom moment. But in the big scheme of things, my opinion of this young lady is not based on whether or not she likes the same movies that I like.
Yeah.
Right now, right there, she stayed with us for a week and a half. I saw all different aspects of her. I'm right. So if we really truly do care about someone, and that's our reason for why we're always saying yes and putting ourselves second, then there's a bigger picture than that one instance where you said yes to the restaurant that they wanted, or that one time that you know got stuck being in charge of something that you didn't want to do. Overall, our character will guide some of these decisions, and how strong our boundaries should be. Right, when we need to just put a no period, I don't need to explain myself to you, and when it's okay to have this dialogue because I really don't want to fracture the relationship.
Love it.
So yeah. So where do you go from here is, I guess, the next question. Like, what's our takeaway from this? Do we just need to kind of understand or to see if there's a certain particular situation that we might be in the habit of saying yes to that really isn't helping us? Do we need to have the courage to stand up to something when it feels hard or different, or we're not sure what we want to do? I don't know. I guess, what's your takeaway on this conversation, Erin?
I would love to hear from our listeners. Where do they see themselves in this conversation? Are they someone who finds themselves saying yes to times when they wish they would have said no?
Hmm.
Do they feel comfortable saying not this time, or are they comfortable with that one little word no? Where do you find yourself? Because I like you said, it is a learned behavior and it is also one that can be unlearned. So if you've
Hmm.
had it, how did you unlearn it? What was a situation that you had where you found yourself deciding, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm not going to go forward with this anymore. And this is what I'm going to do about it. So we'd love to hear if you guys could drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear your story on this.
Absolutely. And it's not going to happen overnight. Like, we have to practice all of these new behaviors and strategies, all need to be put into practice because some of us maybe have been doing this our whole lives and didn't even realize it. And so it might
Yeah.
just start with one situation, one loving person in our life that we know that we can practice on,
Mhm.
so to speak, right? And to start that dialogue and to start, I guess, that looking a little deeper and being okay in that person's discomfort as we try to be true to our real selves, be true to ourselves and be like, hey, me too, right? Not me first, but me all. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us today. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this topic. Be sure to like and subscribe.